Thank you so much for letting me interview you for People's Purpose. Um, the reason why I wanted to interview you is because I think that you can tell your story in a way that can touch a lot of people. Knowing you for so long, I think it's pretty inspirational from where we were in college together to now where we are as young adults, and I'm still going to use the word young because I will not take that away from us. Um, so if you want to say your name, what you do, where'd you go to college, kind of like those things.
Yeah, so Ernesto, Ortega, and I work for Robinhood, and my official position title is CXR. So we work under a customer service line where we help beginning to experienced investors kind of get involved with like equities and learn how to trade. That's primarily what we do. So we handle anything from like real basic service questions to strategies and options and positions like that. Just kind of help them really kind of gather a flow of like what best next moves to make when they're trading and really expanding their knowledge in trading. Where I come from, South Tucson and University of Arizona. Graduated a little bit late, so I understand we're going to get a little bit into that late, and so I'm excited to tell you about my story. I graduated with general studies with emphasis in economy and industry, and it's probably the closest thing you get to a business major, but it is what it is. There's a lot more to the story, so I'm excited to tell you about that.
Woohoo. Well, okay. So when you and I met, I think we were in our I think we were 20. Like just not in our 20s, we were
Yeah.
20. Um, so tell me about how your journey was in that kind of period in your life, and how did you navigate college and university? Are you a fresh gen? And tell us a little bit more about your experience. Like, how did you handle getting into the U of A and what that meant for you and your family?
Getting into the U of A was really exciting. It just felt right. But what felt right at that age is completely different than like what probably should have been right. And well, where do I begin? I think it wasn't for me. It wasn't until I was about 26, 27 that I had figured out like what I was passionate about, what my vision was like, my direction. And for me, I have to be fully bought into like what I'm gonna do before I do it. So what I mean by that is, when I went into college, I I didn't have a direction. I didn't have any will. I didn't have discipline. I wasn't ready. And so the reason for that, I feel and I know now, is because I didn't know where I was going and what I wanted to do in my life, with my life. So for me, that led to a lot of mistakes, and it it's kind of difficult to say because I threw away so many opportunities. I can't even begin to tell you. And I think it just makes a big difference for me. Now I look back at it and I'm super surprised to think that someone at 18 coming out of high school knows exactly what they want to do with their life, at least seemingly, right? So going into it, I'm with my peers. It's felt like everyone had it figured out, but I didn't, and it took a toll on me. I threw away an opportunity with an engineering architecture firm. I was an underpaid internship, and I lost that because of my lack of discipline, my lack of vision, and I went from there. After losing that job, I went from there to delivering pizza. I was delivering food, and it was a very humbling experience. And crazy story about that. Tell me if I'm rambling too much,
Oh, you're not.
but so like that was a crazy experience for me because I was at one point I was with this engineering firm and I was attending their Christmas event at a beautiful hotel, beautiful resort, and it was crazy because I got let go of that job, and fast forward in time, I was delivering food, and I ended up delivering food almost a year later, uh, and to the same event at the same resort to one of the engineers. And it was a full circle experience, just realizing like what I had in front of me and where I went. I drove back to the restaurant only to be yelled at by a manager and told to like go out back and clean mats, and this was me during college. This was me trying to figure my way out and struggling in college and bad grades, and it was being all thrown away. I decided to go on to I decided to move, and I went to a different city here in Phoenix and try to continue my education, but I was lying to myself still because I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was luckily that through one of my fraternity brothers and networks that I got a job with Bank of America. So this is kind of skipping over because there's other things that happened as well. Like I grabbed a job doing sales at Verizon, right? Through other amazing people that were able to connect me. And so I got that, and that was my first like foot in the door, just kind of learning how to sell myself. Yeah. And at that time, because I wasn't groomed to putting in a lot of work before getting a reward, I was very groomed to like, I want money now, right? And so like that taught me the sales skill and taught me how to sell myself and speak in front of people. I took that to Bank of America, and I knew that Bank of America, I wasn't sure that finance was where I wanted to be, but I knew that there was promise there. And around that same time frame, I did have a piqued interest in the investment field. Yeah. So I was like, maybe this is something that I can work with. It's not just something I work with, but maybe somewhere I want to be. So in my last days with Verizon, I was actually writing in my notebook, and I said, I want to be a financial advisor. And this is now like 8-9 years ago. And I had, I guess unintentionally, that was my way of manifesting what I wanted to do. And I put it out there, and I said, okay, what does this look like? And I started drawing in my head the tail end of my life and what I wanted to say the finish line look like. And I said, dream big, you know, go for the stars, and accept that this life might lead you to not accomplishing what you want to accomplish, but know that God forbid the day comes that you leave this world, that you can look back and say that you were pursuing what you love to do, right? So make it, live it, or die trying, right? So for me, like, that was a huge awakening, because what that did for me is it drew the map for me backwards. And so like once I knew where I'm going, it started to help me in so many ways. It let me stay away from distractions. It let me from staying away from making bad decisions, which I still made, but you know, I did it with a different air, if you will. So I got to Bank of America, and I got very involved with like what corporate life was like, corporate offices, corporate America, corporate politics, and just kind of knowing how to navigate in a corporate setting. I walked in the break room there, and they were advertising for Merrill Edge, and it said something about Series 7 and licensing, and in my head I was just thinking, wow, like that's crazy, because like I'm thinking about financial advising, there's an opportunity here, and immediately walked to my manager and said, what do I have to do to get to Merrill and be a financial advisor? And you got to be a top performer, and you got to be this, you got to be that. I said, okay, no problem. And I went to work, and it's crazy how things started lining up, because it just felt like everything was meant to be. Like it required me to learn all the way from delivering food, the value of $1. Right. It required me to get to Verizon and learn how to sell myself so that I could get that interview at Bank of America and kill it. I think the person that referred me to Bank of America, they didn't even think that I was going to get the job, and I said, just get me in the room with them. The one thing I've learned so far is how to sell myself, so just get me in the room with them, and I knocked it out of the park. Right. And then I got in Bank of America, and I had my sales experience. I had the foot in the door, and it said all you got to do is just sell these accounts. Okay, I can do that. That's it. So I killed it. I was top of my district and top of the region for the first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter. Third quarter, I took on additional responsibilities to coach and things like that. And I was able to look back and say, okay, here's what you asked for.
Right.
How'd I get over there? Now, this is where things got even dicier for me because I hadn't gotten my degree yet, right? I knew the licensing was a difficult process in itself, so I was very nervous. I was extremely nervous. I had just purchased my first home, and I wasn't sure what was going to do. A lot of things happening. It was very transitional time, and there was a lot of pressure because I thought like I was still also kind of brand new. I guess this was a bit of my insecurities and doubts at that time, but I knew that if I didn't pass my licensing, the way that it works is if you don't pass your licensing, you get fired. Like they can't use you without a license, so you got to go.
Right.
And I was still so relatively new to the banking industry where I wasn't sure if I could go back and ask for a banking position. So I was mentally preparing that I had to go all the way back to selling cell phones at the mall. And I was like, oh, if that's what it is, that's what it is. I'm young and I have to embrace it. You know, if I fall down to the ground, it's fine. At least I can go back and say I don't have any regrets. So I went for it, and I don't think I studied for anything so hard in my life. I was waking up and I had the audio book running, and while I was getting ready, it was about a 35-minute drive to work. I had an audio book in the car, just playing. I got to work and they paid me to study 8 hours a day, open book, just head over the book and just grinding away.
Yeah.
Same thing. I would either stay extra hours, drive back home, audiobook on my way back home. I breathed it, I sweated it, I cried it. It was mentally tough. Ultimately, what happened is I didn't pass my exam, and that was tough. That was scary.
How'd you take it?
It was hard.
Yeah.
I think the most difficult part, because we were on a big campus, Bank of America in Merrill, the most difficult part was having to stand up out of my desk, literally walk out of the building and go across the way in search for my old managers to ask for my old job back. The good thing is that I had worked so hard. I made sure that I was the first one there and the last one out. And they noticed.
Yeah.
And the first thing that they told me, we love your work ethic. Are you going to apply again? Because we want to see you back.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was great. It was that for me was all I needed, because it allowed me to know that I could walk away. I failed, but I walked away like I succeeded because
You made an impression.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it confirmed to me that like I saw something all the way through from start to finish, and it was because I found what I wanted to do, and it was because something I was passionate about it, and I just knew that I didn't quit. Right. So yeah, I knew at that point I had a decision to either go back to school, finish, and then study for the exam, or simply just take the next year to study for the exam and reapply. And I said the right thing to do, because one of the things that was causing me so much stress is the fact that I didn't have a degree as a safety net, right? So I was like, you know what, the right thing to do is go back. And so I went back with something else in mind. I went back with realizing that if I can study this hard for an exam this difficult, why can't I go back and finish school? One of the biggest things, the biggest insecurities that I had in college was my exam taking skills. I could work for days doing homework and projects, and I would do good on those projects, but when it came down to quiz time and test time, every single time, like the anxiety, test anxiety, and I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not fully bought into like test anxiety, simply because it just so happened that once I found what I love to do, somehow things started to align. So it for me, it was eye-opening that I just needed something I was passionate about.
Right.
And so I do think that I do have to work harder than most, but I think a lot of people do that. A lot of people believe that they have to study extra harder than the next person, because I'm not that guy that just soaks it up like that. So maybe I do have a little test anxiety. I don't know, or like study anxiety.
I think you proved, or you said a really great point, which is you have to be passionate about it. Exactly. I think that makes things a lot easier. So it flows when you take the test, and you're not anxious because it's material you care about.
Exactly. Yeah.
I liked another thing that you mentioned. You said they were stepping stones from college, not really knowing where you're at, and then going into sales, which gave you your first like block, right?
Yes.
And then Bank of America being your second one, and now, how are you feeling? Like, how are you feeling knowing that that was, so were they necessarily mistakes? Can you call them that, do you think?
Say that again. So like, how
do you feel about being where you are? Like, considering at the time they felt like mistakes. So like now looking back, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, no, nothing went to waste.
Right.
Absolutely no experience went to waste. That's one of the most beautiful things that I think that I realized is that literally every failure, I extracted a lesson from it, and I promise you, every lesson I was able to reapply and use somewhere else. Like I did get into a kind of a spiritual kick out of it, because even religious kick, because I looked back and I said, oh, okay, God, like I see why you made me go through this.
Right.
And because like had that not happened, I would not have known this to do this.
Right.
It's crazy how much it aligned. It really, really did. So yeah, to answer your question, I think it was so worth it to have gone through all of those things.
So did you have any insecurities about, I mean, right, there's this trajectory that they tell us to be on, and graduating in your early 20s, getting this fancy job right after school, and now at this point, how old are you, and like where are you at in life?
Yeah, I'm 34 years old. And it's I don't believe it. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a point where like I'm just surprised that people at 18 are expected to know what they want to do for the rest of their life. And I think even there's an understanding that like you go into it thinking like, well, this might not be what I do, but I know if I have a degree, it might lead me to somewhere happy. And so a lot of times you find the situation where people get a degree in this and end up somewhere completely different. So I had respect for that, but because of the way that I was, that didn't even work for me. Because for me, it's like, I needed to be bought in. I needed to be passionate about something. And I didn't feel right going to school, studying something and thinking, well, I might not even end up doing this. No, I'd rather just be in school about what I'm passionate about. And, but yeah, to try to answer your question, putting it short, I don't think there's a one right way to like live life. Absolutely not. I think it's one of the things about our generation is that we're learning that's not the most popular thing, and I 100% agree with that. What I do want to promote and encourage is find your vision, find your passion, find your purpose. Because that's what's going to string you along. That's what's going to answer your question about should I be in school. I'm a number one promoter for education for sure, but having to go through the traditional 4 years, whatever does it for you, whether it's 4-year education or on your own independently, those questions are going to be answered for you if you know what you're passionate about. Right. In the meantime, that is actually one of the biggest obstacles. It's two things. One is what you're finding what you're most passionate about, which is very difficult. It doesn't, for me, it didn't come till I was 26, 27, right? And I was supposed to come at 18, like,
yeah.
How?
That's a lot of pressure.
It is. The other thing I would probably say is just executing your vision, right? And realizing that every failure is worth it, and don't quit. Rest if you must, but don't quit, right? So like I can't tell you how many times I've been knocked on my ass, and just it's incredible. Like you would think, and I'm not talking about like, oh, I'm just having a hard time studying at the desk. I'm not having a hard time. I'm talking about like your car gets broken down, you got no money in your account, and you have to like push your own car next to the freeway to make it home in time for, I don't know, an online class and an exam. The craziest curveballs, twists, and turns, like, they will come. So yeah, it's just pursuing your vision and knowing that just because you're having a difficult time, it doesn't mean anything. Your vision's going to tell you you're going to get knocked off your horse, but it's going to tell you, okay, but we know the answers to get back on the same horse. It's not to get on a different one. Right?
One thing that I heard I don't know who told me or where I might have read it, is like a setback is only a setup for your next part of your life.
100%.
And then you right now just mentioned like three of the biggest words I love. You said passion, purpose, and vision.
Mm-hmm.
What do those mean to you?
Everything.
Yeah.
My vision. So I still have a passion for architecture, which was my original major, and I came to love the investment field, and so I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how I can merge them. Right. I came from South Tucson, as I mentioned, where small businesses don't tend to thrive as much,
Right.
either because of education, lack of resources, or unfortunately corruption.
Right.
And so this is an area where I've pieced together my vision. What I would love to see myself do in the 10 to 20 year time frame is I want to take regular cookie cutter homes, but I don't want to be just your old Joe Schmo in a construction contractors. I want you to open the door to a home that you see it completely renovated from the inside out. I want your jaw to drop. I want it to be, this is just a Lennar home or KB home, but when you walk in, you're going to see it's designed by Ortega Designs, right? So that's the vision, and then I want to flip homes just like everyone else, but I want to take some of that profit and bring it down into building what's called REITs. So real estate investment trust funds, or real estate investment trusts. And so they're just securities put together of real estate products, whether it be land, etc. So not to bore you with all that, but that is where I plan to merge the two. And ultimately, I would like to share my success with South Tucson, where I come from, and try to figure out how to inject financial education primarily into public schools and let that be my legacy. So I want that to be, so that's the goal, right? And every day I go in that direction. So what it means to me is like, that's what's gonna make me happy. That's what's gonna get me up in the morning, because I know that I'm one step closer to it. And that's what we're here to do in life, I feel, is to find your happiness and learn how to transfer that happiness to someone else in the best possible way.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I think just being in the education sector, it is, what you said is so spot on. The lack of resource, accessibility, and know-how with the education, right? So not necessarily getting all of the right investments when there's not enough money pumped into the community in the first place. And I kind of threw you off on your journey, because right now we're in the middle of you going back to your old job, and they're telling you that they want you to reapply for the Series 7.
Yeah. Oh, okay, right. That's okay. So I went back and I finished school, and when it was time to gear back up for the exam had restructured itself to where you take a piece of it independently. These exams normally, you need to work for the company first. They sponsor you, and you take it under their supervision, and they pay for it all. When it came back, it was structured a little differently to where I could take a piece of it on my own. So I said, okay, I got to stay at Bank of America a little bit longer than I expected, and I'll be studying on my own independently. I was doing that, knocked that out of the way, which was good because it gave me kind of a standout-ish way to stand out as a candidate for my next role. And honestly, there was a point in there where I was a little hesitant. I was nervous because I wanted everything to work a very specific, planned out way. I said, I want to take the SIE, I want to take the exam, and I want to then look for positions. But a position actually came to me when I wasn't ready, but I said, what's the worst thing that can happen? I've taken my pits and falls, so why not? Let's take another.
Right.
We've made it this far, let's go. So at the same time, I was actually very bought into Robinhood, where I'm at now, using it personally, my personal account, and I love their mission. And I was bragging about it and just telling people this is where it's going to be next. They're going to be and I was pushing it, and I was loving the entire culture from the outside, not knowing what the company was actually like on the inside. And it dawned on me and said, well, just because they're trying to aim to get rid of the financial advisor as the middleman, doesn't mean they might not have a related role. So I took a look at it. Sure enough, like there's a brand new office, like 20 minutes from where I was living. I said, there's something there. Like it's meant to be. Like it just kind of felt right. So I applied, and I got in. Yeah, I got in, and they sponsored me to take the exam again. And I was more ready than ever to take on that challenge because I had learned how to study, learned how to take a test. I had done put in the work. I said, this is perfectly aligned. I came back and I knocked it out of the park, thankfully.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And now I'm here, and I'm super grateful. Now I get to work in a place that has like 2 items short of a Circle K. You know, the break room has everything I need. I go to the restroom, they have toiletries, for goodness sakes. And these are little things that like I don't forget, you know, like long way. And I can't tell you how much it means to count your blessings every day. You know, the most fundamental things, this is just off the top of my head, and I hope I'm not in the shower later thinking about, dang, that's what I should say. But other than finding your vision, I would say don't quit. Number one, don't quit. I think that if there's one thing that I've repeated the most to myself, it is that. And the thing is that poem, "Don't Quit," can be found out there. I highly recommend it. And it tells you that you can take breaks. You know, take a break doesn't mean that you quit. It doesn't mean that you were defeated. It means that you're charging yourself up so you can keep going. And so for me, there were so many times that I got thrown off that horse and beat to the ground, metaphorically speaking. And there's so many times where my spirit was broken, where I doubted, I was insecure, I was scared, anxiety, all of those dark feelings. I've been through it all, or a good amount. And I think that the number one thing that just kept ringing in my head is like, put one foot in front of the other.
Right.
And I would tell them that no matter what you're going through, even if you haven't figured out what you want to do or what direction you go, just know that you need to put one foot in front of the other and don't stop. Unless it's to take a break. Respect your breaks, and when you're done, get back on the horse and keep going.
I think that's a perfect way to end it. Congratulations on your new journey. If people wanted to reach out to you, they can do it through People's Purpose, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Please.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.